Hello and welcome to the Punter, the show that gives you the inside track on all of the betting opportunities out there for you to make your sport just that little bit more fun. Speaking of sporting fun, I don't know if you were watching the football last night or aware of it at all, but it was an absolutely astonishing night of football, especially at the top of the Premier League, but also all the way down into the lower leagues. From a betting point of view, some staggering stuff going on. Liverpool touched 100 to 1 on in running at one point, and they were 2-0 up. It's only like 12 minutes to go. Amazing night of football. Here to dissect everything and look ahead to the weekend sport as well is the legend Angus Loughran. Angus, what a night of football.
Well, funnily enough, I was in America last night, but it actually suited me fine because you can watch all the games live over there. So I was able to keep up abreast of the action. And I saw one of the most one-sided Premiership games I've seen all season at Loftus Road, where Liverpool played exceptionally well in the first half. Queen's Park Rangers just couldn't find anything. I can't remember seeing 11 corners for the away side in the first 20 minutes of any game before. It looked all over, and then this comeback, it started with Tarap at last finding good quality on the cross for Derry to come in and get the first goal. And then, of course, they continued with Cisse, who missed a great chance in the first half, and to win it with Jamie Mackie. I don't think anyone was stunned.
The trump card.
Yeah, well, it was quite funny because I sent a message over to the Queen's Park Rangers current chairman, Philip Baird, last night, saying in Orlando, one of the great comebacks, and he said it's one of the best nights. You know, and for him, I think they've suffered quite a lot, Queen's Park Rangers this season. That result last night, I just honestly, when you look at the fixtures. I was trying to work out how they would have reacted if QPR had lost and been well beaten, and I would have thought they'd have been 4 or 5 to 1 on to go down.
We will look at
we'll look at all the relegations odds in a second, but it was a huge blow this for Liverpool, and it was just a colossal win for Queen's Park Rangers.
Yeah, as a Liverpool fan, I'd like to say how nice it is to make QPR feel better about themselves. Not so much. There's also a massive game at the top of the title race. So let's have a look at the top of the Premier League with, of course, City pulling it out when they needed to most. The odds of winning the title changed a lot during running last night, with Manchester United looking like they were going to get the result they wanted. And then City finding a way to win. Yeah, I mean, it's not often that you see Chelsea go in front and lose, and that's what happened last night. I think the result was probably fair. To win the title now, United 4-7 and City 5-4. That's very short about United,
yeah, it's too short in a way for me, especially as the key game's going to come. It's going to be a Monday night match now. It's at the end of April, and it's going to be at the Etihad Arena, so City will have the advantage there. We're in the odd, maybe not quite unique because it's happened before, but the odd situation where both sides technically have it in their own hands. Yeah. If either of them were to win every game, they would win the Premier League title. So it's very interesting.
There's from a sporting point of view as well as a punting point of view, you just hope it stays close.
I think it will do. I think it will do. I mean, I'm sure that that game's going to have a significant part to it. What you don't really want is it to be decided necessarily on that night, because there's still 2 big games to come. I mean, City have still got to play then away at Newcastle. Manchester United be at home to Swansea, and then on the final weekend of the season, Manchester United got to Sunderland, and you just don't know what's going to happen. I think we are going to have a very exciting run, as we are for 3rd place, which effectively is what the top London club is. Yeah. I mean, it's not quite. It doesn't quite work like that. But in all fairness, that's probably how it is going to work out.
I mean, this has changed a huge amount. I was looking just 2 weeks ago. Tottenham were 10 to 1 on to finish in the top 4. That's now about 3 to 1 on. As Angus is saying, top London club, Arsenal now favourites. And I didn't look at this particular book, but a month ago, of course, they would have been huge outsiders. It's changed so much.
And what price would they be when they were 2-0 down at home to Tottenham? Right. Yeah, so, I mean, that's where it all suddenly changed. And, I mean, you have to remember Arsenal have been winning these games in the last few minutes. I mean, you look at the Thierry Henry goal at the Stadium of Light. You look at the Newcastle goal from Vermaelen. Yeah. I mean, Vermaelen suddenly come into it with these 3 goals. I saw the goal last night, and you just have to question the defensive play from Everton at that corner. 5 of them went for the same ball. Vermaelen got in.
From a sort of betting point of view, how do you assess Arsenal? Because do you look at that and you think, well, that last minute they're scoring a lot of goals, that they're actually getting lucky? Or do you look at it and say, well, they're a good team and it just happens to be coming out this way and they should be rated as a good team?
They're real Jekyll and Hyde, Nick, this season. I mean, I've seen them at their best and their worst. I saw them against Blackburn where they were superb, but also against Manchester United where they were thrashed by 8-2. Then the 2 games against Milan were extraordinary. The first game was arguably one of the most shambolic Arsenal performances that the side club has ever put up. I also went to the Stadium of Light and saw them in the cup tie against Sunderland, and I thought they were pretty pathetic, to be quite honest. And I mean, it's not a word that you'd want to use about an Arsenal side, but it seems to have changed around again. It's amazing. Henry's little cameo performance has been a big impact on the team, and at the moment, there's a feel-good factor there at Arsenal, which there wasn't a few weeks ago.
No.
It really has changed there.
Yeah, it totally has changed. Well, also with us tonight, I'm delighted to welcome Will Brophy from that'sagol.com on the line. And Will, I hope you can hear me all right. We're discussing the top of the Premier League. There's Will. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good, really good. We're discussing the Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea situation. Can you believe how things have turned around for Arsenal?
Not in the slightest at all. I mean, Arsenal looked dead and buried going back a few weeks, and as you said yourself, it was that the comeback against Tottenham that's really started it. And Chelsea weren't even a factor at that stage. It was Tottenham's to lose, and they really are throwing it away quite bizarrely at the moment. And from being one team for the third place, we've got 3 of them going for it. It's a great end to the season for everyone to watch.
Let me ask you a footballing question, Will, that you can also use for betting. If these 3 were to play a series of games on a neutral venue, which team do you like? Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, I'm talking about.
That's quite a difficult one. I think I've really enjoyed watching Tottenham play this season. They've been a fantastic team to watch. And when they have played at their best, they've looked absolutely phenomenal. Whereas Chelsea, they've still got the problems with their defence. I mean, David Luiz, I can't see how the money was spent on him. The guy, he has serious issues when it comes to defence. John Terry, he's getting on. And Arsenal have also, even if they do show their best defence, it's only guaranteed to last about 30 minutes before one of them hobbles off injured.
Yeah.
So really, I'd probably take Tottenham.
Yeah, well, you saw the price about Tottenham's top London club there. Let's turn our attention to the bottom of the league. Angus and I have already spoken briefly about the QPR game, and let's take a look at how that QPR result actually leaves the bottom of the table. Well, it was a huge result for them, wasn't it? Especially given the fixtures they have left.
Definitely. I mean, before last night, they've 8 of the top 9, I believe, in their 10 remaining games. Obviously, one of them's down now, but if they do pull this one out of the bag, it's definitely going to be a great escape for everyone involved. And but I mean, before last night, I said last night myself on this show, I didn't think that they were going to get anything done because I just hadn't seen it. I've watched QPR quite closely this season, and I just haven't seen them at all. They've been rather lacklustre, and the teams around them were starting to pick up wins as well. I mean, Bolton are picking up the odd draw here. Blackburn are quietly creeping their way out of the relegation zone. Yeah. But if QPR keep winning and keep picking up points, I mean, it's going to be everyone back in it again.
It's interesting.
I think Nick, when you talk about how prices have changed, if you say you'd been here just before Christmas and then taken a couple of months off and come back and seen to be relegated, Blackburn 7-2. Yeah. I mean that actually just shows they were a big odds on. They'd gone. I mean, Steve Keane was out the door. They had no one fancied Blackburn to stay up at all. They ground out a couple of great results. The key was getting that result at Liverpool and then following it up with the win at Manchester United. And then they picked up bits and pieces along the way. It wasn't a disaster going out the cup for them when they went out to Newcastle. But I mean, it was one of those things.
Liverpool are the nicest club in Britain. We just give struggling clubs a helping hand. That's what they do. Now, the interesting thing about the QPR price, I think, is that we talk a lot on the Punter about how general punters overreact to things that they see in the recent present. Now, QPR are 5-2 to go down. To me, that's a bit of an overcorrection for them now to be 6-4 on to go down. I think they should probably be a shorter price than that. I think that's an overreaction to the fact they've had this miracle result because they still look pretty bad. Yeah,
well, absolutely. The fixtures are still pretty desperate, and I mean, you'd have to think that I mean, I'd much rather back them at 4-6 than Bolton at 4-5. I mean, you'd have to look at it like that. Wigan and Wolves, it's going to be hard. But you never know with Wigan. They had the great escapes before. It's hard to see Wolves to me look buried at the moment, and I can't see anyone out of it from there.
Yeah, if you'd rather bet to stay up, you can do that. The bookies will accommodate you for that. All of the odds that you see on screen from our betting partners tonight, Coral.co.uk, and as you can see, as Angus was talking about, Blackburn's changing fortunes means they're 6-1 on to stay up. Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, you can get evens on odds against the other teams, and 3-1 Wigan and 7-2 Wolves, and just over or around about the even money mark for Bolton and QPR. We're really, I think, like most people, assuming it's going to be 3 from these 5. Yeah. With Bolton and Blackburn
having chances of staying up, but at the moment it's a very open contest.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk Chelsea manager now, and this is a very interesting betting market, simply because usually in most next manager markets, after this amount of time of a vacancy, you'd have a much clearer picture. But there seems to be just a lot of rumour and the questions about who will actually want to go to Chelsea on a permanent basis. What's your take on it?
Well, I think that just representative of how Abramovich is running the club. That there doesn't seem to be anybody who's willing to throw their hat into the ring openly and say, I want that job, because to the last few managers, it hasn't gone well at all. And this just seems to be going like that. I mean, Mourinho is obviously a fan's favourite and probably the chairman's favourite, the owner's favourite as well. And there was the pictures going in the press a couple of weeks before AVB left of Mourinho house hunting in London. So I don't know what to make of that. That could just be the tabloids. But when they came out, he's been linked with Tottenham rather than with Chelsea. But things have gone, I think, as I said, I think it's just representative of how the club's nature is at the moment.
Yeah, I suspect Mourinho is just spending some of his euros while the pound's weak, and it's about as simple as that. Angus, what's your take on the Chelsea manager slot?
It depends who you speak to on Mourinho. I mean, he plays a very interesting and crafty game, really. Would he really want to leave Real Madrid? I mean, they've got a fantastic side at the moment, and arguably, they've got a great chance of getting to the Champions League final against their arch rivals and finally putting one over on them, because this season the games, the Clásicos, have been extraordinary. We've had Real Madrid twice score very early goals, and twice they've gone on to be beaten. And when you think how few times that Barcelona have slipped up this season, it really is going to be an interesting finish to La Liga. It's not done by any means.
No, absolutely not. But Chelsea fans, I think, powering that betting market more through hope than expectation of Mourinho being the next boss. Can't see it myself. And Benitez is third favourite, though. My understanding is, from several football journalists, he's already turned it down.
I mean, it's interesting. I don't think Benitez is going to get this job, because I think the fan power will come into it. And some of the songs that the Chelsea fans were singing of Benitez weren't very complimentary.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have Di Matteo's price than Benitez at roughly the same odds. Di Matteo is 9-2 and Benitez is 5-1. There's no doubt where the better value is. And once again, I mean, Guardiola. I mean, what is extraordinary here is that in the front four in the betting, to be next manager of Chelsea, you've got quotes in the front four in the betting of the Real Madrid and the Barcelona manager. It just goes to prove what a big job this is that suddenly become available.
Yeah, or people certainly think it is anyway. It's a really interesting one. Now, there's another big job available at the moment. That's England manager. And you've got people at the FA saying they don't need a manager. Well, that's one way to go, I guess. Let's have a quick look at the odds. Well, this market has been dominated by Harry Redknapp's price, but it's actually moved out in recent weeks simply because he hasn't really said anything positive about it. There claims to have been no contact between England and Spurs, and people are looking around for another option.
Well, yeah, Harry is quite a funny one, because if you go back a couple of months ago, he was making quotes saying that it'd be unpatriotic to turn down the job, and it'd be the Englishman's dream to take the national team to a major competition. So you've got that aspect as well. And I think the performance from Pierce's side against Holland is quite a big part of it. And I actually saw him directly after the game inside Wembley Stadium, and he looked quite relaxed. I think he's aware that it isn't for him, but I think that his performances and the way he's got the team set out, I think it's kind of building the pressure more onto Harry, because he's shown that it can be done. I mean, they're playing a team that's one of the top 3 in the world, and they pull out quite a good performance with a bunch of players that are quite young. And I mean, if that's what you can get out of the youth system, what can you get out of the seniors?
We've got Roy Hodgson, who's now second favourite, presumably because he's good with teams that don't actually play that well and struggle a lot. So he's kind of ideal.
I think that's harsh. I think that's very harsh. I think the
You're a Roy fan?
Well, I mean, I admire what Roy's done in his career, particularly what he did with Switzerland's national side. Got quite close to them in the 90s. He took them to the 94 World Cup finals, if you remember, in America.
Maybe his value. I mean, he's English. The FA will like him.
The FA will love him. He's got very good international experience, which Harry doesn't have. I mean, you've got to be honest. I mean, Harry, love him or hate him, he isn't as much travelled as Roy Hodgson, who's done everything that in his powers to make sure that he's run a good, steady ship. And I think actually, although it wouldn't be, I don't think it would go down well with the fans. I think it would be quite an interesting appointment if they made it to Roy Hodgson.
It's a bit like the Oscars for Best Picture, and there's kind of a blockbuster which all the public loved, and then there's actually an arty film that actually the Academy loves. And
it's happened before.
One of those situations. It has happened before. You're absolutely right. We're going to take a break, but there'll be more Will and more Angus and more looking at the weekend and beyond betting action. Don't go anywhere. This is the Punter. We'll see you in a second. Welcome back to the Punter. We're on a mission to find you the value in this weekend and the rest of the sporting world's fixtures. We're talking football, lots more football to get through. And we're going to start with the big game this weekend, which is Chelsea-Tottenham. I was just talking to my guest, Will Brophy, about which team in London, which big team in London he'd prefer a neutral venue. Almost an impossible question to answer at the moment. What's your take on this, Angus? Chelsea at home obviously have the edge in terms of expectation. What do you make of this team, though? They seem to be a little bit schizophrenic at the moment.
It's not often you get 3-1 Tottenham in any match, and I think, you know, if you're from a straight neutral point of view, and I'd have to back Spurs at the prices. I mean, you know, they'll like an open game. Which Spurs are we going to see? I'm not convinced yet which Chelsea we're going to see, is like you. I mean, I've seen really some interesting performances from Chelsea, some breathtakingly good ones and some pretty pathetic ones as well. So normally they're shorter than 10 to 11. But the big money has come for them. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one, isn't it? Will, there's only two reliable teams in the Premier League, and they both start with Manchester. The rest of the teams just seem really, really unreliable. What are punters supposed to make of it?
I think it's a test of the punters anyway. It kind of shows the people with foresight and from those who just kind of look at the results and take them at their base there. I mean, a lot of it's coming in this season has been, I think, the Christmas that's hit. I think it's hard with the extra cup games. A lot of people like to look at league form and they forget that these teams are playing midweek games and playing in Europe at the week as well. So I think that's become a major part of it this season.
Yeah, everyone has this image of Tottenham as having a really successful season. The wheels are actually in danger of coming off in a big way, aren't they? If you actually look at their form, it's pretty horrendous.
It is. It's 3 losses and 1 draw in the last 4. I mean, that's for a top 4 team. You're not going to stay in the top 4. You'd be lucky to stay in the Europa League places with a form like that. They're falling like a stone at the moment, and I think they really need to pull something out of the bag against Chelsea here to have any hope of keeping themselves in the Champions League spot.
Yeah, it's a big, big game for them. Angus, I was looking just a couple of weeks ago. Tottenham were almost unbackable to finish in the top 4. It's only like 10 to 1 on, perhaps worse. They're now 2.5, 3 to 1 on to finish in the top 4.
And you don't really want to be fourth. A big advantage to finish third. That's where they want to finish this season. I mean, the top 3 are the teams who get automatically into the group stage. I mean, that 4th place, it's a lottery really. You can be given a playoff which you could easily lose. I mean, you don't really want to be in the Europa League. So there's big incentive. I think that's what's making the end of the season so exciting. There's almost like 3-4 competitions within the Premier League. You've got City and United battling out for the title. You've got the 3 London clubs battling it out for 4th place. Then there's the little, a small matter of the Europa League, and then there's the much bigger reaction of staying in the league, because it's a big ask for these clubs to stay in the league.
You actually missed out the prestigious hunt for 8th place, which Liverpool are currently all over. Let's move on to the Championship, shall we? A full programme of lower league fixtures, including the Championship, which is barely lower league, a huge competition in its own right, of course, and some results which affected the playoff picture and the top of the table. Let's just kick off by having a look at that. And Southampton look set fair. Reading and West Ham, and of course the biggest club that people like to talk about is West Ham, and their kind of slips and whether or not they're actually going to make it to the automatic places.
I think it's very interesting that when you look at this, we are going to have a fascinating run for the playoffs here. There are a lot of teams that could get into playoffs. For automatic, it looks like Southampton, Reading and West Ham 2 from 3. One of those 3 looks like missing out. Could be Reading, could be West Ham. To win the title, Southampton are 9 to 4 on. West Ham are 3 to 1 and Reading 4 to 1 and 66 to 1 Birmingham. They've not been dismissed. But momentum is everything in these playoffs. When they come to the playoffs, it's the team in form that are often the most significant. They played it in Lake Nona. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in the next few weeks in this championship. And I think that whoever's got the momentum in the closing stages will be the team that I think will come up as the third place team. If West Ham are in the playoffs, that will be interesting, because I remember when they were in the playoffs, they didn't have the momentum the first time, but they did the second time. And it's going to be such a big test towards the end of the experience. I would say that Sam Allardyce will use his experience. Southampton, I would expect. I don't fancy Southampton to come up if they're in the playoffs. Okay. I think if Southampton are going to go up, they're going to have to go up automatically. But I think they will.
Okay. Will, do you share that opinion? And who do you like to come up from this league?
I actually disagree, because I was speaking about it today, and with Sam Allardyce, he's been a long time at poor footballing clubs, and at the moment he's at a team in West Ham that from the start of the season been back to win, and they're backed every weekend to win, but they're just not performing. He seems to struggling to find the sort of rhythm that you need and the ruthlessness that they need. It's something that he's not used to. He's used to being on the back foot, getting his teams to get themselves up for a big performance, steal a win, steal a draw. I think he's really struggling at this stage. And then on the other foot, with Southampton, well, for the last couple of seasons, they've been champions. They've been top teams. I think you can see they've had their struggles, but I think that came from the step up in quality. Okay. They seem to have a ruthlessness that West Ham have just been lacking this season.
Well, let's have a look at the odds to actually win promotion. And you'll see that Southampton are 10-1 on and sort of reasonably unbackable. Reading and West Ham, the other two clubs we've spoken about there. Angus, find some value for us. Who do you think
the team that's really caught my eye recently and sort of come through on the blind side, really, not really been even noticed to be playoff contenders, has been Brighton. And they've suddenly just come into it. Remember, it wasn't Southampton who won the title last year in Division 1. It was Brighton who won the title in Division 1. They finished strongly. Brighton, they just, I think, could easily get into playoffs. And at 8-1, they look interesting. The most frustrating team for me is Middlesbrough. 1 week, I think, they've been playing some nice football away from home. And then you see a lethargic and pretty shambolic performance at home to Leeds. So you just have to write them off in a way. But they're 9-2 and still in there. It's going to be very interesting. Reading, I think if Reading are in the playoffs, they'll miss out, and that makes it very open. It looks like Southampton, West Ham are the team that really, as we were saying, fascinating.
Yeah. Will, have you seen much of Brighton or any of the other clubs you'd like to pick out for us?
Well, Brighton this season, it's been typical Championship season. It's been really hard for consistency for a lot of the teams. And I agree with Angus there, talking about Middlesbrough. I mean, sometimes you look at them, you think they're a real top side. They're playing football that's sometimes been better than West Ham and Southampton this season. And you see a game where just nothing seems to click. Their midfield especially, sometimes. But I think if Reading fall into the playoffs, I can see them using the experience from last year to let themselves kick on. But I think Middlesbrough, if they get themselves a good run going, I think it's plausible. But I'm not really sure. I mean, they could easily all fall apart in the semi-final. In just one leg, they could do the damage because they've got that sort of suicidal tendency about them. Yeah,
maybe the key is, as Angus said, look for the momentum. Well, let's move on, because there's a great title race developing in Spain. Now, please don't look at this as the forces of good versus the forces of evil, because that's just not right. But it is interesting that Real Madrid, who looked so comfortable for so long, suddenly look like they're wobbling. And kind of wobbling mentally if you saw the last game, where they completely lost it for no reason.
No, I mean, we are going to have a great. I mean, this is a classic La Liga title shaping up, and I think Barcelona are the real value at 9-4. I've got to be honest. Remember, it's
amazing that they're 9-4. Really.
Yeah, a goal difference, of course, is largely irrelevant. I mean, I know it's up there, and you look at it and you think that's worth a point, because it doesn't actually get settled on goal difference.
Head to head, right? Which I think is much better. It's much fairer.
Well, it is. I mean, goal difference would come into it if there were 3 involved, but there's not 3 involved. These two are miles clear. So basically, Barcelona are going to probably have the better head to head, unless Real win in the Nou Camp, and it wouldn't surprise me if they get beat. We are seeing at the moment, Nick, something very special in Spain. We are seeing one player who at the moment, Messi, is head and shoulders above anything. Ronaldo does it for Real Madrid, but even Ronaldo, who would be the best player around by a distance in most eras, is being overshadowed by what we're seeing with Messi. We're seeing something very special, and Barcelona, even though they're 9-4 outsiders. For me, they're still the team to beat there.
Somebody needs to start a market on how many chips over the keeper he does in a season. It's like the first time we've ever been able to bet on that. Will, are you with Angus on this one? Do you see Barcelona being a little bit too big of a price at 9-4?
No, I think they're very good value. I think, as you're saying as well, the head-to-head gives it a lot of edge. But with Barcelona, I think it's going to come down to whether it's going to come down with fatigue, which I think has been their problem this season. I mean, you look at the team, the Spanish players in that team have been playing pretty much constantly for 4 years. All major competitions, they've been running through, again, to the late stages of everything, having no breaks. And I think that's what's caught them this season. But it's whether or not Pep can get enough out of them to really fire them up and just they're all overcome the fatigue and just power on to the league title. And as we were saying with Real Madrid, they're losing the head. And the dressing room hasn't been right all season for them. I think it's coming out now. And this is real backs against the wall. We'll see whether they're going to stand together or whether they're going to continue their infighting and really throw away the league.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch. And of course, we'll keep you updated on how the odds on that title race move. Now, after the break, we're going to talk about some other sports, some golf, some F1 and all kinds of good stuff. So you don't want to go anywhere. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're watching The Punter and we're guiding you through all the sport that matters and seeking the value for you if you fancy a bet tonight or any time in the next few days. Now, we're going to talk some golf, really hotting up as we head towards the first major of the season, and Angus is Mr. Golf. Now, where were you yesterday, Angus?
Well, I was lucky. I went round the Pro-Am in Bay Hill with Graham McDowell, the US Open champion from a couple of years.
There you are.
Yeah, the conditions were excellent. The golf course set up very well, and although the rough's a lot longer than I anticipated it would be, and
right.
You know we've seen it already. The Arnold Palmer Invitational started today.
How many strokes start did you give him, or did you?
Well, he played quite well actually. He was all right. What was interesting? What was interesting was having the opportunity to go inside the ropes with a major champion.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, but to just see exactly what they do in a practice round. I mean, it was a pro-am. He had three other amateurs with him, and they weren't the best golfers. They might have been nervous, but they didn't play particularly well. But Graham was using it as a way of where he'd like to hit it, where the pins were. He's done well in this event before. He's a Florida resident living in Lake Nona, just down the road now.
Yeah.
And I was actually fascinated by how sometimes he wasn't necessarily in that round yesterday. He was playing it to positions on the green where would the flags be later in the week, which I found quite interesting. Obviously, as the round developed, he was trying to get as good a score as possible, but it was certainly an eye-opener. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, fantastic experience. Well, the tournament is the Arnold Palmer Invitational. It's just kicked off today. So let's give you an idea of the market and who's actually playing in this one. Tiger Woods is 4-1 favourite. I just can't. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about it in the Masters. I can't believe the price of Tiger in these markets. Now, I understand why. It's because the weight of money for Tiger Woods in any golf tournament.
Funny enough, Nick,
it's so big.
It's actually not the weight of money.
It's not the weight of money.
It's not the weight of money. It's the fear factor. So short? Yeah,
the bookies are
I'll tell you what.
I'll
tell you why. He's won this event 6 times.
Yeah.
He used to live in Isleworth, which is just next door to Bay Hill. Literally, I mean, you can get there in 2-3 days. He knows the course inside out, and he does take these par 5s apart on this course. What Tiger's problem at the moment is that it's a lack of putting and it's a lack of confidence on the greens.
And you know, Angus, that's everything, and that when golfers get older, that's usually the thing that
Sure,
goes.
but we have seen in the final round of the Honda, he came back with a 62 and it was unblemished. I watched him the whole 18. He had a 67 one round in Doral. He never looked like it being anything worse than that. And you see, what you have to remember is we go back to when Tiger burst onto the scene, incredibly, it's 15 years ago now.
Amazing.
Yeah, 1997 Masters. The first 9, he went out in 40. The second 9, he came back in 30. And that second 9, after that, we've had 15 years of, certainly a decade.
Well, we'll talk about him in the Masters second. Just on the Arnold Palmer, who would you pick out, having seen the course and being familiar with these runners? And riders?
I mean, Ernie Els is one who does interest me because he needs to win to get into the Masters. He played pretty well last week in the transitions. He should have won that tournament. He missed putts on 17 and 18. I watched him quite closely at the Tavistock Cup, which was just down the road at Lake Nona, similar course to this, and I thought he played pretty well. And I think he'll be in the shake-up come Sunday night in this event at Bay Hill.
Okay, well that's this week. Very soon the Masters, and one of the biggest sporting events of the year, certainly the most famous golf event of the year. And as I said, Tiger Woods second favourite, Rory McIlroy the favourite. How do you see the Masters this year? What would your take on it be if you were to have a bet?
It seems very short 4-1 Rory McIlroy.
Very short.
But I mean, I must say that I've watched quite a lot of him this year, and he is
good at golf, isn't he?
He's very good at golf. I mean, I was tempted to say he's the clear world number one, but of course he isn't now because Luke Donald's number one.
But you think on ability?
On ability, I mean, Rory McIlroy is going to be number one again shortly. I think that's inevitable. But don't discount Luke Donald, who's done well at Augusta in the past. If he wins a major, his career will be complete because he's won everything that he'd like to. He was, in a way, they used to think that he was didn't win enough. Now he's more like a winner. We were looking at Justin Rose there at 33-1 and saying that's fair each way value.
The Masters is interesting, isn't it? Because you see, it's such a peculiar course compared to a lot of the rest of the courses they play on, and you do see the same names showing up in it year after year after year. Yeah,
I mean, it's a long time, first-time winners. Fuzzy Zoeller was a first-time winner, but there haven't been that many. Europeans went through this fantastic run in the 80s where they dominated, and they're beginning to dominate golf at the moment, which is rather frightening for the Americans. When you look at the last three winners on tour in America, Luke Donald, Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose.
Terrific.
I wonder how Lee Westwood's feeling. I mean, there's another player who's on his day more than capable of winning a major.
Likes Augusta.
He does like Augusta, and he'll give you a good run for your money, as will the defending champion, Charles Schwartzel, but it's hard to defend the Masters. There's a lot of extra pressure. Adam Scott there, I mean, last year, he's got to be counted as unlucky because he didn't do too much wrong last year.
Yeah.
It's the curse of no Australian having ever won the Masters, which is unbelievable. To the Australians, well, it's quite interesting. I was speaking to one or two people from Australia, and there have been one or two events that have been over the years, but this is now all about winning the Masters for them. He played quite well the other day, and at 25-1. I think he's lightly raced, shall we say.
Yeah.
I think he'll go quite well.
Might be a bit of value. Some good tips there for the Masters. I'm sure you'll be tuned in. I'm sure you'll have a bet. Now, the F1 season has started to much excitement. Not from me personally. I don't really understand it. I actually saw that McLaren's wing was illegal, and my brain went, they have wings on these? Weird. But it is a hot betting sport, and you can find some value as well, because it's perhaps not the most exploited sport in the world from a betting point of view. The Malaysian Grand Prix is up next, and you can bet qualifying and you can bet race winner. Betting qualifying is a lot of fun because you get the result quickly and it changes so much.
It's like the 2020 cricket, isn't
it?
Of motor racing. And I mean, it's going to be Hamilton and Button, I think, who are going to be up there. It's interesting, the price of Vettel, because at the moment things aren't really going for Vettel, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if things changed round for him. But I wouldn't be tempted to back him to be the fastest in qualifying in this Malaysian Grand Prix. I would look for either Hamilton or Button to be that fastest. And the British interest is great, the two of them going head-to-head against each other with this young German who you can't write off just because he's had one disappointing Grand Prix.
Schumacher, that one.
Yeah, well, that 16-1.
The other young one.
Yeah, the other young man, lots of experience. And, well, I think we're in for a really thrilling Malaysian Grand Prix and a thrilling season. There's the interesting thing that Vettel's 130 to win the Grand Prix, the second race of the season, with Button just ahead of Hamilton. But Hamilton's going to be a very, very tough competitor this season.
How much is the first race an indicator of what's going to happen this year, and how much of it is just a little bit of a one-off?
I don't think it's a one-off. It's certainly a good pointer. But last year we had that amazing start with Vettel going bang, 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 and basically
dominating.
He dominated, and it wasn't very competitive. I think what the sports need is a few different winners and an exciting time. I think almost inevitably, see, I wouldn't really like to have a bet in this race with around the front two for one reason. I think team tactics could come into it. Now, whether Button and Hamilton are going to listen to team tactics, I don't know. But they're two Britons, they're racing for the same team, And the Drivers' Championships, the market that interests me. I still think that Vettel, even though he was disappointing in the first Grand Prix, is a massive price now.
If you'd have said at the end of last year that he would be 11 to 5
after one race,
you see, you would have lumped on.
Yeah, and I think that's a very British market, that price, because the money, the punters at home are going to back Button and Hamilton.
Yeah.
Let's just face it, they're not going to go into a betting shop. They're not going to go in, come on, you Germans. It's just not the psyche. It's not the psyche of the British punter.
It should happen.
It could happen, but I do think that Vettel I think it's there for him again, because Button and Hamilton are going to take points off each other.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be one of the great rivalries of 2012. And there's going to be plenty of coverage of it. It's great to see two British drivers there, going toe to toe in the same car, in the same team. Though. Yeah. That's also interesting.
Fantastic time for Britain in sport. Generally, we're doing so well on so many things. Great to see. Let's just take a quick peek at the Constructors' Championship betting as well. McLaren, unsurprisingly, the favourites. McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes goes you 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, well, I mean, there'll be lots of money for McLaren because that gives you a nice interest. You're back into Brits, and here in Britain there is going to be patriotic money. It's just the way it works. Red Bull have their spoilers at 13 to 5, but again, isn't it nice to see a competitive Constructors' Championship?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, normally it's
sport without close competition.
Yeah,
it just becomes.
And that's why I hope team tactics aren't something that we discuss come Sunday.
Yeah. Okay, great stuff. Should be a lot of fun to watch the F1, and the qualifying betting sounds like a tremendous amount of fun. Have a little investment there and sweat the qualifying, why don't you? Now, one more part of the punters to go tonight. We're still going to look at some cricket and some snooker, so stick with us. Welcome back to the Punter, taking you through all of the bets you should be having this weekend and beyond. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Some great stuff from our experts and a couple of things still to point your way, including Angus's bet of the night. Have to admit, I've called it that. He hasn't called it that, but it's a good one. We're going to talk cricket. There's a test match series going on. England, Sri Lanka, just a 2-match series, and that throws up an interesting betting opportunity, Angus.
Well, I don't really understand quite how the series betting's worked here because, I think we're going to get flat pitches. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see 2 draws. And I must admit that you're looking at the series there, 0-0 and 11 to 2. It looks very fair. You can have 2 to 1, it being 0-0 or 1-1 coupled. Now that's the series being draw, and that actually gives you an interest the whole way through the 2-match series.
So you're saying bet a draw for the series.
Well, a draw for the series is, you can get 2 draws. It's quite possible that it'll be 11 to 2. The 4 to 1 for 1-1 is one team winning over the other. But if you take the 2 to 1, if the first match is a draw, then you've got 2 to 1 the second match. If it's an England win, you've got 2 to 1 Sri Lanka, and if it's a Sri Lanka win, you've got 2 to 1 England. You're looking at the match odds here. It's 11 to 8 England, which I think is on the short side. But I think that the batting of England is going to be the key. They struggled
horrifically. So
yeah, I mean, I know people who thought, there's going to be runs and runs, like we saw on pitches like Adelaide and Brisbane last year. But it wasn't the case, and there wasn't a Test 100 from an England player, or anything like it.
You think the pitches in the series are going to be flat?
I think yeah, Alistair Cook is a worthy favourite, but Kevin Pietersen's the mercurial man, isn't he? The way he finished that series in Dubai and Abu Dhabi was most impressive, and he'll be anxious to get straight in amongst the runs on pitches that I think are going to be batting friendly.
Yeah, he's mercurial is such a good word for him, isn't it? He just can look like a world beater, or he can look totally lost. I've
been lucky to watch a large number of Kevin Pietersen's big moments in cricket through the years. And, I was in Jamaica when he was infuriatingly on 99 trying to hit one out the ground when a single would have just brought him 100, and England were skittled out in the final innings. At his best, Botham-esque, and Botham was the greatest all-round cricketer I ever saw because he did it with the bat, he did it with the ball and everything. Pietersen is a batsman. I mean, he's an occasional bowler and he'll pick up some key wickets, but I mean, he doesn't feature on the top England series bowler graphic, whereas Botham in his prime would have done.
Yeah, which is extraordinary. Don't get many like him. Here we are, top series bowler.
Well, you see, there, I think Swan and Panesar, obviously, they're favouring the spin, but I don't think that it's going to be that's significant. I think
well,
that
if you're right,
James Anderson and Stuart Broad coupled, I think one of those two will end up topping the England series wickets.
If you're right about the pitches and people are just assuming it's a subcontinent turning pitch, then that could be a real opportunity to back the seamers.
I think the seamers, but they're going to have it tough as well. I think it's going to be tough in the field. I think it's going to be a really gruelling 2 matches. In Gala especially, it's going to be very hard for them to bowl teams out twice. I could really see this being 0-0, the two draws and move on, nothing lost.
There you go, the recommendation of the night, get on the draw in the Test Series. Now, there's also a snooker tournament going on, the Chinese Open. You can literally bet on anything. This isn't even close to the limits of what you can bet on. If you fancy a bet on the snooker, we've got some odds for you on that as well. And Judd Trump is the favourite. But snooker tournaments tend to be very open nowadays, don't they, in terms of the markets?
Well, they do, but this Judd Trump, last year's runner-up in the Betfred World Final, and he's performed superbly this season. The interesting player for me is Neil Robertson, the previous world champion from 2 years ago. He's playing really well at the moment. I wouldn't want to be on Ronnie O'Sullivan. His mind's elsewhere. Mark Williams also having a good season this year at 12-1. But Judd Trump, a worthy market favourite, and he's the man they've all got to beat.
Yeah, and just one Chinese player on that graphic.
Well, Ding, he's not just one Chinese player.
Pretty good one.
Yeah, and you have to understand that this is very, very important to the Chinese people. Snooker's big in China, and I think that Ding, the tournament needs Ding to be there as long as possible, and that double-figure price will be certainly tempting a few of the punters, and there are a lot of Chinese punters around.
Yeah, there are a lot of Chinese punters. That's very true. Now, one more sporting event. Next week, the baseball season starts, and I'm going to lay this on Angus, see what he thinks. I think there's a little error in this market, and it's based on reputation of teams and weight of money as well in America. The Texas Rangers are either 5th or 6th in the betting, depending on where you look. You can get 12-1 in a place to win the World Series in the autumn. Season kicks off next week, and some of the teams in front of them are nowhere near as good as them. Texas Rangers probably been the best team in the American League the last 2 seasons. Lost one starting pitcher, but replaced him with what looks like a fantastic import from the Far East. Their hitting lineup is as good as ever, and I think they should be 2nd or 3rd in the betting. Teams like the Boston Red Sox, who look as dysfunctional as anything, are ahead of them in the betting. I think it represents a little bit of value. What do you think?
Well, it could be. I agree with you about Boston. I've spoken to someone who follows them closely, and he's not anticipating that it's going to be any heroics from them. The Yankees are always, from New York, are always hard to beat.
And have improved.
And yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I was in New York on Saturday night, and there was good vibes from the Yankees.
Yeah.
Normally the Yankee fans are a bit like, you see, what's happened there in New York sport, the Giants have won the Super Bowl, so there's a lot of bragging rights now. It's big time bragging rights as well. So the pressure is always on the Yankees to succeed. But when the Giants won the Super Bowl, it's double pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure. It could go either way, of course.
Yeah, it can go both ways. But I just think those Yankees, I just think that they for their supporters, the only way that they can shut the Giants fans up is to win the World Series. And so, it was interesting in New York. I'd not really appreciated it. Over here, we sort of get lost in the American sports, get lost a bit. Apart from the Super Bowl, which is still very popular, but
not in my flat they don't.
But
plugged into ESPN America most of the day.
I realise that, but the vast majority of punters,
they don't appreciate how big it is.
No, right? But you go and you live in New York. It's like these are serious sports there.
Well, I'm sure you've been over there. You must have seen the Linsanity phenomenon with the basketball.
Yeah, of course.
This long-suffering New York basketball fans finally had something to cheer. It's extraordinary.
It's a different country, it's different culture, and it's different sports they like. They don't understand why we're so patriotic about football, but the soccer it is for us, and that's what we've been concentrating on tonight, and we've got some tremendous games to look forward to. Fantastic games to look forward to. We're running out of show. Just give us if you were just going to have 1 or 2 picks this weekend on the football, what would you go for? I think the football this weekend is going to be very, very tight. I'm looking at Tottenham as a bit of value to maybe beat Chelsea. I think that Queen's Park Rangers, after that win against Liverpool. Can they go to Sunderland and get a win? So, well, it's not impossible because Sunderland will have their mind on that Everton Cup tie.
Yeah.
Stranger things have happened in an away win for QPR.
Yeah, you certainly, towards this part of the season, you have what I call the on-the-beach phenomena. You're looking for teams that are already in the summer holidays, don't have anything to play for in the league.
Absolutely. That's one that might just go under the radar. And I mean, it's a huge game.
Okay. Great stuff. Thanks so much to Angus Loughran and to Will Brophy, who was with us earlier. I hope you've got some useful information to add a little bit of fun and hopefully a little bit of cash to your sporting enjoyment. Thanks again to everybody, and I hope you have a great sporting weekend. There'll be more from the Punter very soon. Take care.
Stay ahead of the game with Sports Tonight Live. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Search for Sports Tonight Live on Facebook and like our fan page. Follow Sports Tonight TV on Twitter and tweet us your thoughts and opinions. Sports Tonight Live, it's the platform for the fans.